There's a financial mistake waiting for almost all of us. Not because we're careless, but because every stage of life comes with a blind spot we rarely see until it's too late. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how much money you make. There will always be things we can never anticipate. I've seen people with six-figure salaries make it. I've seen college students make it. And chances are, your parents might have too. The hardest part is that these mistakes don't feel like mistakes when you're making them. They feel reasonable. They feel normal. And by the time you realize what they've cost you, you've already spent years paying the price. That's why I want to walk through them, one decade at a time. Your 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond. Find the chapter you're living in. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that every age has a financial lesson waiting to teach you, whether you're ready for it or not. The first trap begins in your early 20s, that we call the identity loan. Just imagine that you open your eyes and you're 22, the most beautiful age of a person's life. You've just graduated, stepping into life with so many ambitions and aspirations. You get your first real paycheck, and for the first time in your life, it feels like the world is finally opening up. So you do what most of us do. You don't just buy things you need, you start buying the life you've imagined for yourself. Maybe they are nice vacations that stretch your budget a little too far, but it's that constant feeling that youth only comes once and you need to enjoy it as much as possible. Maybe it's the credit card that quietly turns dinners, weekends, and nights out into memories. Or the car payment that feels worth it because pulling up in an old car somehow feels like falling behind. Looking back, I don't think it's really about spending too much. It's about trying to become someone. When you've spent years waiting for your life to begin, it's easy to believe that the things you own are proof that you finally made it. And the truth is, nobody really tells you to slow down. The bank approves the loan. The dealership hands you the keys. Everyone treats it like you're making it. Then a few years pass, you're 26, and you wonder why saving money feels impossible. It's not because you're irresponsible. It's because you spent your first years of earning an income trying to build an identity instead of building a foundation. The funny thing is, by the time you're 30, the feelings of wanting to let loose and have fun without worrying about tomorrow will gradually fade away. Your priorities will change, but the debt you took on trying to impress your younger self has a way of sticking around. And believe it or not, it is not too late, because you still have the chance to fix everything. Wait till we get to 47, because that one blindsides people who did everything right. Fast forward a bit and we arrive at the late 20s or early 30s, along with the next pitfall, the timeline trap. In the blink of an eye, you've officially turned 29, or stepped into your 30s. At this moment, the spending starts to look different. You're probably not chasing status the way you did in your early 20s anymore, but something else quietly takes its place. You look around, and it feels like everyone is moving forward at the same time. Friends are getting engaged. Weddings fill your weekends. People start buying homes and posting photos of new keys, empty living rooms, and fresh paint. Without even realizing it, you start asking yourself a question you never meant to ask. Am I falling behind? So you start making decisions that feel responsible on the surface. You buy a house, even though the numbers make you nervous, because renting suddenly feels like you're standing still. You spend more on a wedding than you ever planned, because scaling it back somehow feels like you failed before you've even begun. Looking back, I don't think most people are chasing those things. They're chasing the feeling that they're on time. And that's what makes this stage so dangerous. There's nothing wrong with buying a home or getting married. Those can be wonderful decisions when they happen for the right reasons. But when they're driven by someone else's timeline instead of your own, this will result in the years that follow increasingly stressful and aimless for you, both financially and mentally. A decision made under pressure at 29 doesn't just affect the next few months. Sometimes it quietly shapes the next upcoming decades. And then, as more time passes and you find yourself halfway through life, a new challenge awaits you on the road ahead. One known as Golden Handcuffs. That's right, now you're 36. At this point, basically, on paper, everything looks like it's worked out. Your career is finally where you hoped it would be. The paycheck is bigger, so is the house, the car, the kids are in good schools. From the outside, it looks like you've built the life you always wanted. But this is where the lesson changes. In your 20s, the temptation was spending money to become someone. By your 30s, the challenge is holding together everything you've built. Little by little, your life becomes more expensive. Not because you're trying to impress anyone anymore, but because every new responsibility quietly becomes the new normal. And one day, you realize something you never expected. You don't stay in the job because you love it. You stay because too many people and too many bills depend on that paycheck. You tell yourself many times that you'll slow down next year, or after the next promotion, or once the mortgage feels lighter. But somehow, that moment never quite arrives. People often call this the Golden Handcuffs. I think that's an accurate name because from the outside, it still looks like success. Most people would probably say you've made it. But inside, only you know what the truth looks like. Instead of your money creating more freedom, now your lifestyle starts deciding how you spend your time, your energy, and even the choices you believe you're allowed to make. That's when you realize the goal was never just to earn more. It was to build a life that still gives you the freedom to choose. Time flies like the wind, and you have truly entered middle age, bringing with it that final pressure, or so it seems, the catch-up panic. Finally, you turn 47, and for the first time, you sit down and do the math on retirement. Not the rough math you've done in your head before, the real numbers. How much you have, how much you'll need, how many years are left. And suddenly, the gap feels a lot bigger than you expected. That's when another kind of mistake can creep in. I've seen people who were careful with money for decades suddenly start taking risks they would have never considered before. A coworker mentions crypto, and they jump in. Someone promises easy money through day trading. A friend of a friend has a sure thing in real estate. To be honest, from an outsider's perspective, it's easy to look at those decisions and think, what were they thinking? But the main point is that it wasn't just about getting rich. They were also thinking about running out of time. At this stage of life, they want to make up for things they missed out on or failed to achieve in the past when they were younger. Consequently, they are willing to take risks, driven by a mindset that is extremely dangerous at an age when they ought to be contentedly embracing stability with their beloved family. That mindset is, go big or go home. And so, they have effectively transformed a period of quietude into a violent upheaval, a situation where only they themselves can determine the final outcome before entering the twilight of their lives. So, at this point, you can see that the 22-year-old who spent money trying to prove himself and the 47-year-old taking desperate risks to make up for lost time, they may look like completely different mistakes, but underneath, they come from the same place. The fear that you're not where you thought you'd be, and the feeling that you need to do something now before it's too late. Looking back at all four of these stages, there's something I wish more people understood. The 22-year-old who spent too much, the 29-year-old who felt pressured to keep up, the 36-year-old who became trapped by the life he built, and the 47-year-old who suddenly panicked about retirement. None of them were bad with money. They were just trying to feel something, to feel successful, to feel like they weren't falling behind, to feel safe, to feel like everything was going to be okay. And maybe that's the part we miss when we talk about money. It was just the tool we used to deal with something deeper. So if you want to avoid these traps, just divide the process of self-questioning into two stages. The first stage, spanning from your early 20s to mid-30s. What am I trying to prove with my money? And to whom? The second stage, from your early 40s onwards. What do I have right now? And is such a reckless gamble really worth it? Those questions would be a big turning point that makes every financial decision you make far more prudent and well considered. Finally, now, the question is for you. What stage of life are you in? And do you find yourself falling into any of the traps above? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, okay? And if this was useful, please hit subscribe and like. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.